I would like to use Excel and pivot tables to solve problem 18 of homework module 5, question 18. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my data and just my data. Notice I didn't pick up the text in the table next door. For some reason it has a hard time at being Excel grouping things when I pick the text over here. So I'm just choosing the data, insert, pivot table. Where do I want to put it? I'm going to start it right here at E1, and then I get this menu coming up. I want to make a column that contains the points per game, but I want it grouped. So I'm going to go from this plus sign to this arrow, and I'm going to right click. There's a choice to group down here, and then I have to walk through this menu. I'm going to start at 10. I'm going to end at 29, and I'm going to increase by 2 units each time. And it's going to create my groupings. Okay. Now I need to put the body of the text in. I need to actually physically go in and count how many numbers are between 10 and 12, 12 and 14, etc., etc. Well, the way you do that is I now take these points per game and I drag it down into the values box. Notice that because I have created this column as what I would want to call a bucket, that Excel defaults to counting. Okay, now I want to go over here and I am going to push this value field settings, and I'm going to change that column heading to frequency. Okay, so custom name, I've just put in frequency. I can see that I'm counting and I'm showing values. I don't have any calculations, etc. The next thing we were asked to do is to create a frequency distribution, or a relative frequency. Well, the pivot table will do that too. What I need to do is I need to drag this PPG one more time down in here and click the down arrow, choose value field settings. I'm going to change the name. I'm going to call it relative frequency. All right, so far I haven't done anything. See, the numbers are still the same. But I'm going to go to this show values as, and right here it says show values as no calculation. Well, that's not what I want. What I want is I don't really want as a percent of the grand total, but that's where I have to start. What it will give me is a percent distribution if I choose percent of grand total. See, notice how it gave me that percent distribution. Well, what I do to just get the relative frequency, highlight that column, and on the home page, choose numbers, number, I'll go with 3 decimals, and there's my relative frequency. Now I'd like a percent frequency. Well, I'm going to go over here back to this pivot table fields, and a third time I'm going to drag that PPG down into the value box. I'm going to drop the down arrow, choose value field settings. I'm going to give it a name, percent frequency. And I'm going to show value as, once again, I'm going to go here and say, all right, I want a calculation as a percent of the grand total. Choose OK, and there's my percent frequency distribution. Notice when I clicked outside the table, my options over here went away, but if I click back in the table, it comes right back. I could construct a cumulative distribution. All I do is now I drag it down for a 4th time. I choose the down arrow, value field settings. I go to show values as. Now, if I scroll down, I'll start to see running a percent running total. That's accumulating. So I want this cumulative distribution. Okay. So I click OK, and there it is. So what is a cumulative distribution? Well, notice that in the 10 to 12 point range, there are 2% of my people. From the 10 to 14 point range, there are 2 plus 6, or 8% of my people. In the 10 to 16 point range, there are 2 plus 6 plus 14, or 22% total. So my counting, or I didn't change this heading, I can actually change it here. If I do cumulative, should always accumulate to 100%. So by the time I add in who's scoring on average 28 to 30 points, I should have everybody. That's how you use this pivot table to generate information. Now, unfortunately, if I try to graph from the pivot table, it assumes that I want all the data. So here's what I'm going to do instead. To construct a histogram, I'm going to highlight the data again, and I'm going to go to Insert and insert a pivot chart and tell it where I want it. I'm going to put it right here below the last table. I'm going to put the column or the row in, the first row in the exact same way. Notice, because I had done this before, Excel wants me to do it again. So that's why I got a repeat up here without having to do the grouping. All right, now I'm going to put the points per game in the values field, and instantly my picture shows up as this frequency distribution. So hopefully this helps you use the pivot table. So I will post this, and hopefully you can give me some feedback. Thank you.